Hi everyone, today we're going to jump into a really fun technique that I have been experimenting with recently, and that's using the concept of super forecasting to predict what's going to happen in the future, really related to headcount planning. So if you're going through a process right now, you're looking at first quarter results and you're trying to think, okay, what does the headcount plan look like over the next 12 to 18 months? And how does that relate to my hiring plan? You can actually go and look at some of the other videos that we've recorded that go into depth on building your own models. What I'm going to do here is actually go through in detail how you could use an LLM such as ChatGPT with a very basic prompt to actually predict different scenarios that are going to happen and use that as the basis to start modeling for a 5-quarter plan in this example. So let's jump straight in. The inspiration for this came from a research report I read looking into the super forecasting capabilities. So you can actually see it here if you just Google Phil Tetlock, go to his Google Scholar page. You'll see some of the incredible research that is happening in the super forecasting space, especially over the last couple of years as LLMs have become more commonplace, and you can actually use them to improve the forecasting capabilities of individuals by taking best practices and actually using a kind of back and forth. We're actually going to use pretty much one shot in this the scenario. So we're going to give it a prompt. We're then going to give it some data. I'm going to ask it to predict potential outcomes. In practice, if I was doing this for a company and actually building a full headcount plan, it would probably spend a lot more time actually challenging the assumptions, modeling different scenarios, and potentially pulling in a lot more data as a baseline, as well as some potential private data that you might not have public. But in this case, we wanted to keep it as open as possible, so we could use this as an example. And the method that I'm using here is actually within this concept. In this research paper, they actually give a treatment prompt. So what they actually did in this research paper is take a series of forecasters and then test those that had this super forecasting prompt supporting them against those that had a prompt that actually provided no real input, and compared the output of the two to figure out if actually having this AI support gives you more accurate forecasts over kind of a 12 to 18 month period. What they found is that actually you do get a huge boost. And so I'm pretty excited to kind of test this out. And it'll actually be interesting to look back 3 months from now and see if some of the predictions that we made here are actually come true and whether it falls within the realms of a forecasting capability. So we'll jump straight in. Anyone that knows I prefer ChatGPT for most of my work. So we're using the 4.0 model here. You can see all I did was take the prompt directly from that research paper, drop it into ChatGPT, and you can see the response that I get back is a confirmation that the chat model is now operating as a super forecaster, gives me a bit of insight into what it's doing. So this is all set up now. It's a simple prompt. Start the conversation, and the prompt is good enough to actually kickstart the model into the super forecaster mode. So what I did next was then uploaded the Microsoft 10Q. Now 10Q is the latest financial report on a quarterly basis from a given company that's publicly traded. This is a SEC requirement in the US, and pretty much globally, you'll find that these quarterly financial reports are available. So this, if you're watching this and actually applying for jobs right now, that's actually a really interesting way to look at different insights into what challenges is the company going to face and how may I be best positioned to overcome those challenges if the company is publicly traded. So we'll take this scenario. And what we want to do is say, okay, given the first quarter performance from Microsoft, how is the headcount plan going to look like over the next 5 quarters? And what we don't want to do is just say, tell us what the headcount is going to be 5 quarters from now. We actually want to model out different scenarios with probabilities of those scenarios happening. So I laid that out with the prompt here, and then you can see the thought process that the model actually went through. So first it read the quarterly financial report. It then went through a reference class and said, okay, well, how do big tech workforce trends look over the last 4 years? So pull in some data based on the knowledge that it has. Then it created 5 different scenarios for the next 5 quarters. So there was one which was focus growth, another one which is target restructuring, and it actually gives you all the drivers and why those would happen. Again, with org design implications listed below. Looks at expansion if Microsoft's going to double down on AI, and contraction based on potential regulatory issues, or who knows what's happening with the economy right now in North America, and then finally recession or regulatory shock and what happens there. But most useful for us is it comes up with a scenario with a base case. So it says focus growth is the most likely option, that's 35%, but we don't want to just go with the most likely option. We actually want to account for everything. So it gives us this summary table here, the 5 different scenarios, what the headcount growth is likely to look like, the probability of that growth, where the hiring is actually going to come from. In a big company like Microsoft, that's going to be more important. And what you might want to do is, if you're modeling this for a company, is actually get into the weeds, go down to look at the individual team sizes and how they may change over time. And that's really where you could take this as a next step. And where the reduction in headcount might focus. So you can actually see here, and I think this is potentially realistic in a lot of big tech right now. They might want to increase hiring AI, cloud, enterprise sales, and actually reduce general and administrative expenses in headcount, and actually the legacy products as well, which maybe are not really right for innovation and are really kind of just cash cows for the company now, and they don't really need to support long term. So this is the different base case scenarios. What I actually wanted to then do is output this as a spreadsheet, so I could put it into Excel, or in my case Google Sheets for the demo, and actually start to play around with the model. But what I would do, again, if I was running this myself for a company, is pause here and actually go through the process of challenging all of these assumptions. We can actually go through each one of these assumptions and say, well, are these drivers accurate based on what we believe is going to happen? And are these org design implications accurate based on what we know about the executive team that we're working with? And so you can actually really start to challenge them. You can go back and forth and actually work out the plan with the model live. And that's where the human AI interaction is going to be really valuable. But the output, just to speed up along this video, is a CSV file. Now what you can see is the first file that was output actually didn't do what I wanted it to do, and I should have given a little bit more context to the model so it could give me exactly what I want. But what I wanted is scenarios, probabilities, headcount, and then a hiring plan for the next 5 quarters. And so it finally gave me that, and this was the output that we had. I've modified the formatting a little bit. So the first few rows are what the model output itself, and you can see it's very basic. We have starting headcount, target headcount, attrition, and hiring. This is just a very simple calculation. And what it did is actually plan the hiring as linearly over the next 5 quarters. So it's just this divided by 5, which is helpful, and it's a good place to start an initial forecast. I think what most of you will actually then think about is, well, what is the distribution of hiring over the next 5 quarters? Do I actually want to pull back because of uncertainty in Q2 and then maybe ramp up in Q3 when you have maybe people graduating from college and you can maybe onboard a lot more junior folks, or people are looking for new roles before the holiday season? So you can take your seasonality into account here as you're thinking about planning, but this gives us a baseline at which to plan. But I think what's most interesting here is actually doing this calculation. This wasn't part of the sheet that the model gave me, but it's something that you could ask it to do if you're not comfortable doing it yourself. All I did was take a weighted average here. So you can see it's the sum product of the probability of the 5 different scenarios multiplied by the target headcount. So this says, okay, given all the different scenarios, what I'm likely to do is grow the overall organization by about 5,000 people, then did a weighted average for attrition and hiring. This gives me a hiring plan for the next year that's actually going to grow the overall org by 5,000 people, accounting for attrition, but we need to hire 5,800 people per quarter. And this is again pretty helpful as a starting point, but you would go on to do, I think, more advanced modeling. So that was a very quick run through of something that I've been playing around with recently. I think pretty exciting. If you do want to see more in this, or you want me to go into more depth, please drop a comment below, find me on LinkedIn, or take a look at some of the other videos I've done. I've done a lot around capacity planning and headcount planning. Really excited about this area and planning to do a lot more in the future. So just let me know what you want to see. Take care.